Today in the 21st century, most people have been taught that the dinosaurs roamed the Earth 65 million years ago and mysteriously died off after a comet hit the Earth. Somehow, over millions of years, the surviving dinosaurs then evolved into the birds of today. This idea, though taught in almost every school and major university, has not been supported with evidence from history or the geologic record. It gives no explanation for the vast fossil graveyards found throughout the world, nor does it explain how many kinds of animals found in the fossil record remain alive to this day. Is there a better explanation? Is there scientific and archaeological evidence that gives a simple explanation for what happened to the dinosaurs? In this documentary, you will be given evidence that the dinosaurs have always existed with man. You will discover that ancient man frequently wrote of interactions with dinosaurs throughout recorded history, and you will see evidence to verify this. You will also be shown evidence that there could even be some dinosaurs that have survived to the present day. Finally, we will examine one of the most accurate and trusted historical records known to man, the Bible. The Bible gives a far different version of what happened in the history of ancient man that caused the extinction of most dinosaurs. We will look at its claims in light of the evidence that has been presented in this documentary. Before we start, consider this. We all have beliefs and ideas about what we think is true. These are called our presuppositions. Sometimes our presuppositions are true and sometimes they are false. When considering evidence, it is very difficult to set aside the presuppositions that we hold and look at evidence with an unbiased open mind. Truth is sometimes very hard to accept, especially if it is contrary to what we have believed. Much of the evidence that you will see in this video has been ignored by modern-day science, but a close examination of the evidence will reveal some startling conclusions. In 1841, the first use of the term Dinosauria, meaning terrible lizard, was created by the famous British anatomist and paleontologist Sir Richard Owen. He used the term for the first time at a meeting of the British Association for the Advancement of Science held in Plymouth. After that meeting, the word dinosaur rapidly became a popular term to describe these giant lizards that were being discovered by paleontologists. During the 1800s, after the first discovery of large dinosaur fossils, scientists began to search the rocks for clues to what had happened to these terrible lizards and other creatures that were buried in the earth. Unfortunately, they became focused on the rocks and buried fossils and failed to examine history for evidence of what had happened to these creatures. So what exactly does the historical record reveal about the dinosaurs? Remember that the word dinosaur was not even created until 1841. Even up until 1891, some dictionaries did not contain the word dinosaur. Prior to this, dinosaurs were known by other names. Every culture had names for them. For example, the name that you are probably the most familiar with is dragon. Even up until 1946, the word dragon was found in dictionaries and has in its definition this telling description. Names from other cultures include some of the following. Dragon history is nearly universal throughout the world's ancient cultures. Where did this global concept originate? Why is it so universal among cultures who were separated by continents? How did societies throughout the world describe, record, draw, etch, sew, and carve these creatures with such uniformity if they had not been eyewitnesses of them? Let's first examine the written historical record and then move on to the physical evidence. The reports of dragons range from personal encounter reports and science papers to legendary stories like Beowulf and the Loch Ness Monster. A well-known old science book, the Historia Animalium, claims that dragons were not extinct in the 1500s, but the animals were said to be extremely rare and relatively small by then. In 1572, a scientist named Ulysses Aldrovandus carefully described a small dragon seen along a farm road in northern Italy. The rare creature was killed by the farmer when he struck it on the head with his walking stick. Aldrovandus obtained the dead body and made measurements and a drawing. He even had the animal mounted for a museum. It had a long neck, a very long tail, and a fat body. The skeletons of a number of ancient reptile-like creatures called Tanystropius have similarities to the basic description that he gave. One dragon story from the ancient land of Sumer in Babylon tells of the hero Gilgamesh. He decided to make a name for himself by traveling to a distant land to cut great cedar trees needed for his city. He reached the forest with 50 volunteers and discovered a huge reptile-like animal which ate trees and reeds. The story simply says that Gilgamesh killed it and cut off its head for a trophy. Thousands of dragon stories and pictures can be found in ancient Chinese books and art. One legend tells about a famous Chinese man named Yu. The story says after the great worldwide flood, Yu surveyed the land of China and divided it into sections. He built channels to drain the water off to the sea and help make the land livable again. Many snakes and dragons were driven off from the marshlands when Yu created the new farmlands. Some old Chinese books even tell of a family that kept dragons and raised them to use their blood and body parts for medicines. In 1611, the emperor appointed the post of royal dragon feeder. An Irish writer recorded an encounter with a large beast with iron-like spikes on its tail which pointed backwards. Its head had the shape of a horse's, and it had thick legs with strong claws. These details match features of dinosaurs like Kentrosaurus and Stegosaurus, which had sharp pointed spines on their tails, thick legs, strong claws, and long horse-like skulls. The respected Greek explorer and historian Herodotus described small flying reptiles in ancient Egypt and Arabia. These animals sound amazingly like the small pterodactyl Rhamphorhynchus. They had the same snake-like body and bat-like wings. Many had been killed near the city of Buto in Arabia. He was shown a canyon with many piles of their backbones and ribs. Herodotus said that these animals could sometimes be found in the spice groves. They were small in size and of various colors. Large numbers would sometimes gather in the frankincense trees. When workers wanted to gather the tree's valuable juices, they would use smelly smoke to drive the flying reptiles away. The well-respected Grecian philosopher Aristotle said that in his time it was common knowledge that creatures like this also existed in Ethiopia. Similar animals, 3 feet long, were also described in India by the geographer Strabo. In Pliny's book Natural History, written around 70 AD, he says, Africa produces elephants, but it is India that produces the largest, as well as the dragon. Claudius Aelians, a Greek military writer of the 2nd century who wrote De Natura Animalium around 200 AD, in his work stated, The Phrygian history also states that dragons are born which reach 10 paces in length. 10 paces, that's about 30 feet. The city of Neuralic in France was renamed in honor of the killing of a dragon there. This animal was reported to be bigger than an ox and had long, sharp, pointed horns on its head. In 1271 AD, the great explorer Marco Polo recorded in his writings that the Chinese emperor had dragons that pulled his chariot on special occasions. And in his book, The Travels of Marco Polo, Polo records the following about the Chinese province of Kharzan. He states, Here are seen huge serpents 10 paces in length and 10 spans in girth of the body. At the forepart near the head they have 2 short legs, having 3 claws like those of a tiger, with eyes larger than a 4-penny loaf and very glaring. The jaws are wide enough to swallow a man, the teeth are large and sharp, and their whole appearance is so formidable that neither man nor any other kind of animal can approach them without terror. Others are met with of smaller size, being 8, 6, or 5 paces long. An Anglo-Saxon chronicle from AD 793 reported, This year came dreadful forewarnings over the land of the Northumbrians, terrifying the people most woefully. These were immense sheets of light rushing through the air, and whirlwinds, and fiery dragons flying across the firmament. Alexander the Great reported that when he conquered parts of what is now India in 326 BC, his soldiers were scared by great dragons that lived in caves. In 275 AD, Legend says that George of Lydia, a Roman soldier in the guard of the Emperor Diocletian, killed a dragon while in Libya on a crusade. According to legend, in the 7th century a dragon named Garguet rose from the waters of the Seine River in France. Unlike the typical dragons of mythology, this one did not breathe fire but rather was a water dragon. The monster proceeded to lay waste to the countryside around Paris. Saint Romain, the Archbishop of Rouen, accompanied by only a condemned prisoner, set out to stop the beast. They captured the dragon and led it back to Paris, where it was slain and burned. The head, however, was saved and mounted on a building. In commemoration of this event, architects began to design gutter spouts in the shape of the Garguet, and eventually in the shape of all manner of bizarre creatures now called gargoyles. There are thousands of other legends of people seeing and killing dragons throughout history. Now let's take a look at the physical evidence that has been found that points to the existence of dinosaurs with man. What you're about to see, you will not see on the Discovery Channel, the History Channel, in the science textbooks, or in any secular publication. If you happen to see or hear something about any one of these discoveries, you will find that they will be attempts at debunking or proving them to be fake, fraud, or forgery. However, with careful examination of the facts that surround these discoveries, the truth is undeniable. The highly technical ancient civilization of the Nazca Indians flourished on the southern coast of Peru from around 1 AD to 750 AD. This culture produced an array of beautiful crafts and technologies such as ceramics, textiles, and geoglyphs. It is still not understood exactly how the Nazca produced their incredible geoglyphs called the Nazca lines. They also produced thousands of carvings on burial stones. These stone carvings, which are known as the Ica stones, are an enigma. There have been over 16,000 of these remarkable stones found over the past 50 years. They contain images of daily life, battle scenes, agriculture practices, medical procedures, advanced technologies, and most amazingly, dinosaurs. Many skeptics have tried to debunk the Ica stones by saying that they are a modern-day creation, but the evidence indicates differently. In 1535, Spanish conquistadors came through Peru in the area where the Nazca Indians had lived. They reported finding stones with strange animals carved on them. The designs and patterns on the stones also indicate that they were authentic from the Nazca culture, and of the 16,000, only about 500 had carvings of dinosaurs on them. Consequently, many of the carvings have nothing to do with the dinosaurs whatever. They were simply observations from everyday life of the Nazca culture. In Acambaro, Mexico, since the 1960s, over 56,000 ancient clay figurines have been discovered. Many of these clay artifacts are sculptures of dinosaurs. The approximate age of these clay figures is around 4,500 years old. Many people have studied these figures, and the opinion of their authenticity is divided. Most who have no preconceived biases believe that they are genuine, but others who believe that the dinosaurs died off millions of years ago state that they remain skeptical in spite of the radiocarbon dating and investigative evidence that points to their authenticity. 16th century Aztecs produced this dragon sculpture. The face resembles a dinosaur like the Tyrannosaurus rex. Several other South American and Central American civilizations have produced similar sculptures. These side-by-side comparisons are very revealing. These Central Andes artifacts bear a striking resemblance to dinosaurs like Tyrannosaurus rex and Ceratosaurus. And these Mexican figurines, created sometime between 300 BC to 300 AD, could be replicas of the dinosaur Ankylosaurus. China, an ancient land shrouded in dragon lore and mystery. The Chinese calendar, or zodiac, which was developed as early as 1000 BC, has on it 12 animals, 11 of which are alive today. But the 12th, the dragon, merely a legend? Or is it based on a real animal, the dinosaur? It doesn't seem logical that the ancient Chinese, when constructing their zodiac, would include one mythical animal with 11 common animals. A more rational explanation would be that the dragon, which is mentioned so often in ancient Chinese history, is now extinct or very rare. Here are a few examples of Chinese dragons that look extraordinarily like dinosaurs. Could this be some type of sauropod, like the Brachiosaurus? This Chinese pottery artifact looks very similar to the hadrosaur. And this 3rd century BC ornamental box appears to have sauropod dinosaurs built onto it as handles. This 2,500-year-old Chinese dragon closely resembles a creature like a Diplodocus. Central Asia, with its dense rainforests and jungles, is home to many stories about strange dinosaur-like monsters, and the artifacts that have been found are quite revealing. The similarities that these monsters and dragons have with dinosaurs is undeniable, and coupled with the modern and ancient stories of monsters that continue to be seen in the jungles, leads many to believe that one day one of these rare creatures could be captured or killed. This 12th century Cambodian temple, constructed in 1186 AD, is home to a very interesting dinosaur artifact. The temple is covered with ornate designs and stone carvings on its exterior. This carving of a Stegosaurus-like dinosaur was found on the temple wall. As late as the 1800s, the Dayak culture of Borneo was producing artwork with dinosaurs on them. This water fountain on a Hindu temple built in the 1800s looks very similar to the Triceratops. There have been several other findings like this throughout Asia, including these 2 10th century AD bronze sculptures from Nepal, which bear a close resemblance to several types of ceratopsid dinosaurs. European history is filled with dragon artwork, sculptures, and artifacts. These not only include the popular look of dragons seen in much of the artwork, but also include many other fascinating creatures that look very similar to dinosaurs. The Palestrina mosaic from around 100 AD has several animals depicted that appear to be extinct and prehistoric. Why would the Roman culture place prehistoric extinct creatures within their historical documents and artwork? The obvious answer is that they existed together and they recorded what they observed. Here we see a dinohyus, which means terrible pig. The dinohyus was supposed to have died off about 24 million years ago, and here we see several men fighting what appears to be a type of quadruped dinosaur. Found at Carlisle Cathedral on the tomb of Bishop Richard Bell, who died in 1496, are these 2 brass engravings. Here are 2 dinosaurs depicted in a 2nd century Roman inscription. The Thracians were a group of Indo-European tribes who spoke the Thracian language and thrived from 3200 BC to 500 BC. This Thracian helmet is adorned with an ornament that looks much like a Centosaurus. Look at the ornament in comparison to skeletal remains and drawings. Many other ancient cultures throughout history have given us artwork, sculptures, and artifacts that point to the existence of dinosaurs and man together. Take a look at a few more of these amazing artifacts. This amazing cave drawing was found in Wapatki National Park, Arizona. It is thought to be around 1,000 years old. At Bridges National Monument in Utah, the Anasazi Indians made this cave drawing several thousand years ago. This ancient cylinder seal was found in Mesopotamia. In a book by A.M. Myler, written from 1725 to 1727, recounting his travels from Rome to Jerusalem, then to Troy, Egypt, Syria, and Malta, are found pictures of many things that Myler saw and drew as he traveled. This is a drawing of something seen by Myler. It appears to be some sort of flying dragon. Much more likely, it was a breed of pterosaur. Indians in the American Southwest and also throughout Central and South America tell stories of the thunderbird that by description and some archaeological evidence could be a pterosaur or pterodactyl. And Indian prayer sticks that are used to this day have the head of a pterodactyl on them. This brief video touches on only a small portion of the physical evidence for the existence of dinosaurs with man, and at the end you will be given references if you wish to investigate further. Now that we have looked at the history, let's take a look at the present day and examine evidence for dinosaurs that could still be alive today. If there are dinosaurs that are still alive, and they have always existed with man, this means that modern scientists have made some serious errors regarding their interpretation of geologic and paleologic data. It also spoils the strongly held belief that the dinosaurs were wiped out 65 million years ago when a comet hit the Earth. So what really happened to the dinosaurs? This narrator and many millions of other learned people, young and old alike, believe the biblical story of the Great Flood tells their fate. The Bible says that Noah took 2 of every kind of animal onto the ark. If that is true, then Noah would have included young dinosaurs, which were much smaller than their older adult counterpart. The environment before the flood was very different, and this allowed both men and animals to live extremely long lives. All reptiles grow from the time they are born to the time they die, so a reptile that was 600 to 900 years old would have been an extremely large animal, a dinosaur. The younger dinosaurs would have been much smaller. It would have been logical for Noah to take younger animals for several reasons. They eat less, sleep more, produce less waste, and have a longer reproductive lifespan. All life on Earth, except for those on the ark, perished and was buried in the sedimentary rock layers that were laid down by this worldwide catastrophic flood. The vast fossil record that we see so consistently throughout the entire world today is proof of this worldwide flood, and interestingly, there are over 500 flood legends and stories from around the world. After the flood, Noah's family and the surviving animals began to repopulate the earth. Over time, the dinosaurs, like many other creatures, were hunted to near extinction. Many also died because of the Ice Age and extreme climate change that occurred after the flood. There would have been multiple reasons why the surviving dinosaurs would have been killed off by man. They were usually described as being ferocious and a menace to people. Also, they would have been hunted for food. And finally, they would have been hunted for the honor and glory of killing a ferocious creature. So where would we find very rare and nearly extinct animals which had been nearly wiped out by man and the harsh post-flood environment? It would be logical to look in places where man has difficulty reaching. The nearly impenetrable jungles and deep vast bodies of water throughout the world would be a good place to start. One of the most common dinosaurs that we find evidence for in our time is the plesiosaur or elasmosaur, which were types of dinosaurs that lived primarily in water. It would have been much more difficult for man to hunt down this type of creature due to its ability to live almost entirely in water. Also, it is believed that these creatures, as well as many other extinct reptiles, are nocturnal like the alligator and caiman, making them even more elusive. There are many reputable stories of people seeing or having brief encounters with water-dwelling dinosaurs. 3 of the most common in English-speaking countries are the Loch Ness Monster, the Lake Ogopogo Monster, and the Lake Champlain Monster. The Lake Champlain Monster, or Champ as many call this creature, is regularly seen in the waters of Lake Champlain in upstate New York. It is likely that this is not just one creature that is being sighted, but multiple creatures of the same species that live in the waters of the lake. Lake Champlain is an extremely large glacial lake that is up to 400 feet deep in places. Thousands of people, dating all the way back to the Abenaki Indians, claim to have seen this creature. The first recorded sighting took place when Samuel de Champlain came upon the lake in July 1609. During this expedition, the French explorer noted in his journal these words: "A 20-foot serpent with a horse-shaped head and a body as thick as a keg." The most famous of the Champ encounters was in 1977 by a woman named Sandy Mancy and her family. She took this photo and watched the creature for more than 10 minutes. In an interview, she stated, "I know that what I saw was a dinosaur." A man named Dr. James Miller from Norfolk, New York, was a sergeant in the U.S. Air Force stationed at Plattsburgh Air Force Base in the summer of 1983. He and 3 friends were in a canoe on Lake Champlain when they saw Champ. They said, "It looked like a huge serpent moving up and down, not side to side like a fish. It was more than 30 feet long. They watched the creature for over 15 minutes. Lake Okanagan, an 80-mile-long lake in the south-central interior of British Columbia, is home to a creature that has been named Ogopogo by the local people. Archival records of Ogopogo's existence go back to 1872, and sightings have been reported regularly up to the present. The creature is described as being 1 to 2 feet in diameter, with a length of 15 to 20 feet. The head has been described as being horse or goat-like. Early inhabitants of the area, including Indians and English settlers, both had encounters with Ogopogo, and it's recorded that armed settlers patrolled the shoreline to prevent attacks from the creature. On September 16, 1947, Ogopogo was watched by some 30 cars of people along an Okanagan Mission beach. The creature was described as having a long, sinuous body, 30 feet in length. Not many creatures like this have been sighted by such large numbers of people at the same time. On July 17, 1959, a group of people saw a tremendous creature with a snake-like head and a blunt nose swimming some 250 feet from their motorboat on Okanagan Lake. The group watched the creature for over 3 minutes, after which it submerged. Loch Ness, which is a lake in Scotland, is home to the Loch Ness Monster. There have been thousands of in-water and out-of-water sightings over the past several hundred years. Some of these sightings have been very close encounters. The list of reputable people who have been eyewitnesses goes into the hundreds. It includes doctors, lawyers, scientists, farmers, clergy, and many people just like you and me. These people, many of which have given sworn statements to the truth of what they have said, all say that they saw a creature that is like nothing they have ever seen before, and many say that the creature closely resembles a plesiosaur. For a deeper look into the Loch Ness dinosaur, the website www.nessie.co.uk is about the best. They have records of hundreds of eyewitness accounts and information on the continued quest to positively identify the creature. Lake Erie has been home to a number of sightings of strange, unidentified creatures. This small creature was discovered dead along the shore of Lake Erie by a taxidermist named Pete Peterson of Lakewood, Ohio. The creature was 3 feet long, had 4 flippers, a small head, and a long neck. He took the creature and mounted it. The creature appears to be an infant plesiosaur. In 1925, this creature washed up on the coast of California. E.L. Wallace, president of the Natural History Society of British Columbia, said, "My examination of the monster was quite thorough. It had no teeth, its head is large, and its neck full 20 feet long. I would call it a type of plesiosaur." Another witness, Judge W.R. Springer of Santa Cruz, felt the creature was from a prehistoric age. He added his observation: evidence of 2 short feet or flippers, and probably swam with its head high above the water. During the 1930s and 40s, such creatures were spotted many times by fishermen of Monterey's sardine fleet, with one account stating that it was witnessed by one boat's entire crew of 12 men. There have been thousands of confirmed sightings of very large, long-necked serpent-like creatures from the United States, Canada, Scotland, Russia, Norway, English Channel, Brazil, Japan, China, and Sweden. Several unidentified dead creatures of similar description have also been found. Skeptics make excuses for such sightings, but the evidence still remains. The sheer number and also the valid testimonies of people of reputable character make these sightings hard to deny. Found in the deep jungles of the African Congo is the largest swamp in the world. The Likawala Swamp is 55,000 square miles in size. This should give you an idea of just how big the swamp is. The swamp is 80% unexplored. Very few civilized people venture into this swamp because of the harsh conditions. But tribespeople living around the swamp say that there are several creatures that live there that are apparently living dinosaurs. When they are shown pictures of different dinosaurs, they identify without hesitation the Hepatosaur and the Triceratops as creatures that they have observed in the swamp. The Hepatosaur that was identified by the natives has the name Mokele Mbembe. The tribesmen say that the creature lives mostly in the shallows of the swamp and is seen in the very early morning and at dusk. Mokele-mbembe is described as being mostly nocturnal and very territorial. Natives do not like to have encounters with this vicious creature. However, they say that they have killed and eaten the Mokele-mbembe before. Cryptozoologist Roy Mackal has explored portions of the African swamp and has written a book called A Living Dinosaur. The book details the regular encounters that tribal people have with the Mokele-mbembe and the search for evidence of its existence. This creature has been seen by many people, including African natives, explorers from the U.S., an African biologist, and government officials from the Republic of Congo. Unfortunately, because of the harsh environment and the dense swamp, no high-quality pictures have yet been taken of the creature. Around the same region of the Congo, the people tell of a creature they call Ngobu. When the natives are shown pictures of dinosaurs, they identify the creature as being very similar to the Triceratops and the Styracosaurus. It is described as having 6 horns and is known for killing elephants with them. Across the globe in South America, a dinosaur similar to Mokele-mbembe has been seen. For over 200 years, there have been reports of people seeing large reptile creatures that look like the extinct dinosaurs of the textbooks. In 1907, Colonel Percy Fawcett of the British Army was sent to mark the boundary waters between Brazil and Peru. Colonel Fawcett was an officer in the Royal Engineers and was well known as a meticulous recorder of facts. While in the Madre Swamp, Colonel Fawcett saw an animal he believed to be a Diplodocus. He also stated that stories of a creature that looks like the dinosaur Diplodocus were confirmed by many of the tribes east of Ukale. Pterodactyls, flying reptiles which were thought to have gone extinct over 65 million years ago, are seen in many parts of the world today and in the recent past. Many legitimate reports have been recorded over the past 200 years. From San Antonio, Texas, to South America in the Amazon rainforest, to the islands of Papua New Guinea, people are still seeing these winged reptiles. The creatures have various names in different places throughout the world. In Papua New Guinea there are 3 known species, which are called ropens, indava, and sekebale, and in the Congo they are called kangamato. These creatures are nocturnal and seldom seen during the day. This has been confirmed the world over. However, there are still a few sightings that occur during the day. The ropen of Papua New Guinea is seen occasionally by the native people. They say that the creature looks like a flying reptile with no feathers. When shown pictures of different birds and dinosaurs, they identify the ropen as looking very much like the pterodactyl. The people of New Guinea say that the ropen is a meat-eating, flying reptile that is mostly nocturnal. Its abdomen glows as if it has some sort of bioluminescent bacteria present in its intestines. In South Africa and Ethiopia, the natives describe a creature similar to the one seen in Papua New Guinea. They call the creature Kangamato. It is often seen in the jungles of South Africa. They are described as being featherless and nocturnal. One account from 1923 from Frank H. Melloland, an explorer and author, states that he collected reports from natives of an aggressive flying reptile they called Kangamato. He said that the natives were occasionally tormented by these creatures and described them as being featherless with smooth skin, having a beak full of teeth and a wingspan of between 4 and 7 feet. When shown illustrations of pterosaurs, Melloland reported, quote, "Every native present immediately and unhesitatingly picked out and identified it as Kangamato." Another account was given by Montana resident Dwayne Hodgkinson. Mr. Hodgkinson was in the Army in 1944 and stationed in New Guinea. While out on a trek to one of the local villages, a friend, a local guide, and Mr. Hodgkinson observed a very large pterodactyl take off from the ground and fly through the air. Mr. Hodgkinson states that he knows what he saw was a pterosaur, and this is a composite sketch of what he says he saw. His eyewitness story can be watched online at youtube.com. In 1971, Australian psychologist Brian Hennessy was in Papua New Guinea. He states that he and the men he was with saw a large flying creature that, in his words, looked prehistoric. He described the creature as having no feathers, black to dark brown in color, with a wingspan of at least 6 feet. He states that it also had a very long tail. There are many eyewitness accounts given by native peoples from Africa and New Guinea, but there have also been eyewitness accounts from people all over the world who have seen very large pterosaur-like flying creatures. The states in the U.S. where reputable accounts have come from include Alaska, Texas, California, South Carolina, and Washington State. The San Antonio Light, a newspaper of Texas State, reported on February 26, 1976, that 3 local school teachers were driving to work on an isolated road to the south of the city on February 24th when they saw an enormous bird sweeping low over cars on the road. They reported that the bird had a wingspan of 15 to 20 feet and leathery wings. After the incident, the teachers all identified the creature they saw as a pterodactyl. Some skeptics excuse these sightings with the explanation that the witnesses were just seeing giant fruit bats. The problem with this argument is that giant fruit bats, or flying foxes, do not fit the descriptions given by most of the eyewitnesses. The common features look nothing like fruit bats. They include a head with a pterodactyl-like protrusion, very long tail, very slow wing flap compared to bats, glowing bellies, and in many cases a much larger overall body size than the giant fruit bat. The fruit bat hangs upside down, and the ropin, by eyewitness accounts, is said to sit in an upright position when perched in trees. Also, these pterosaurs are seen in places where giant fruit bats are not found. The examples and testimonies given here are just that. They are a brief summary of evidence that exists. The dinosaurs were supposed to have died off millions of years ago. How did they survive? Why does it even matter?